Good evening. Now, today is another one of those days in this great city called Nairobi. For the majority of Kenyans who use public transport, it's been quite the day. The new directive by the county government successfully kept public transport providers, that is, buses and matatus, out of the central business district. However, that success in keeping matatus out ran opening clips has also been punishing for commuters who've walked long distances to get connecting matatus or even just to get to the other workplaces and other desired destinations. Other than the fact that the new poorly developed termini, if at all they can be called that, are quite some distance from the CBD, there is also the issue of lack of solutions, as there are no buses or other means such as trains to use to connect to get city residents into the CBD. There is also the issue of security for pedestrians and the critical lack of pedestrian walkways along most of the main highways into the city. Tonight's news coverage starts with what appears to have been a not very well thought out plan by the county government that is in its early stages, seems to be creating more problems than answers. First, a look at the highlights. Tonight on NTV.
From Mudhurwa, Mr. Chair, into the city center, it's just a walking distance, 1 minute walk. So many people don't go to the gym. It's part of exercise.
A mocking governor.
Mabonyenye wanaingia na gari ndogo. Raia amegoza bila ya kuingia. Kwa hivyo hii serikali imelalia raia.
And suffering Nairobi commuters. CBD Matatu ban heads to the courts.
It must be rescinded today, and that's why I'm in court.
Also tonight.
All 12,222 candidates who scored 400 marks and above will be placed in national schools.
Where top KCPE performers are headed for secondary education, but challenges of transition persist.
We shall do all that it takes to make sure that you get your resources in good time so that we can start the year in facilitating our students.
A tale of two men and a mother who stole her own baby.
Have committed to a children's home or a rescue center.
Plot thickens in a baby consolata theft saga. Plus, trouble on the streets of Mombasa.
We are starting our exams on 7, so the student were demanding for an extension of the fee payment deadline.
Technical university students' frustrations with administration boils over.
NTV Tonight with Zainab Ismail.
Our sign language interpreter this evening is David Agundoa. Now, commuters in Nairobi were forced to walk long distances to either connect to the next terminus or gain entry into the central business district. Traffic was chaotic as only personal vehicles were allowed into the CBD, and the many matatus lining up to enter the termini allocated to them affected traffic flow. NTV's Charity Mwangi reports.
Multitudes of people walking along roads to and from the various CBD entry and exit points characterized the situation in Nairobi for the better part of the morning. Nairobi residents lamented the restrictions barring matatus from accessing the city, saying that it is inconveniencing them and further threatening their livelihoods.
Sijatembea, nimepanda pikipiki ndikanifikisha hapa na 100. Na sijui hiyo gari ya Super Metro itanilipisha pesa ngapi mpaka Mudhiga.
Watu wameathirika pakubwa kwa sababu kiupande wa biashara pia hii eneo huaga tunategemea most of people they are coming out of Nairobi, Mombasa, Kampala. They used to come here. Kwa hiyo wanaweza kuingia kwa hoteli wapate chakula kama ni sehemu ya kulala. Kwa hiyo imekuwa sasa hakuna usaidizi wowote.
Their frustration was directed at a government that they say has failed to cushion citizens from tough economic times. They accuse the government of making a tough situation even tougher.
Hii sheria inatuumiza. Tunaambia serikali ya kwamba hii ni serikali tulichagua ama ni serikali ilituchagua ndio itukanganye.
At the entry points of the various termini that NTV visited, the poor planning or lack thereof was evident. All the vehicles allocated the various termini could not fit in the designated areas, and those that were there could not meet the great demand.
Mabonyenye wanaingia na gari ndogo. Raia amekosa vile ya kuingia. Kwa hivyo hii serikali imelalia raia.
There was police presence at every entry point to the CBD as they anticipated some resistance from Matatu operators who threatened to force their way into the CBD at the weekend. This was particularly so for Matatu operators at the Kariakor area, whose attempt to gain entry was quickly thwarted by police deployed in good numbers at the scene.
Matatu imeandika watu wengi sana, wacheni waambie ukweli wa mambo. Na saizi venye tuna inconvenience watu wengi. Ma mechanics wako hapa hivi Kariakor wanakulaga hiyo matatu. Watu wengi hawa biashara kuvita au hakuna biashara leo town.
The Matatu operators are accusing leaders of failing to consult them in the execution of the decongestion plan. They say the ban will make the situation worse.
Tumemap matatu, routes zote za matatu venye zinafanyaga kazi. Na tumejaribu kuengage government iweze kuinvolve urban planners. Na tunawaka na University of Nairobi, Department of Institute of Development Studies. Lakini government, county government, wako na hizi vitu zote na wa involve stakeholders kwa hii sekta ya matatu.
Nairobi residents fear that the economy may suffer as a result of this ban. They say that no sooner are they settled in their offices than they get into the business of worrying about how they are to get back home. Charity Mwangi, NTV.
And the High Court has declined to suspend the Nairobi County Government directive barring public service vehicles from accessing the Nairobi Central Business District. This is after Nairobi Senator Johnson Sakaja sued City Hall and Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko over their directive, accusing Sonko of failing to consult the public and stakeholders before implementing the ban.
The fight over the Nairobi County Government's directive to ban all public service vehicles from accessing the capital's city centre has now gone to the corridors of court. Nairobi Senator Johnson Sakaja this Monday moved to court seeking to stop the ban, accusing Governor Sonko of failing to consult not only the public but also the stakeholders.
The people of Nairobi feel very betrayed, you know. People are walking long distances, they're getting into the offices sweaty, and, you know, it's just a bad situation, and they're asking, is this why we voted, you know? So let's keep the politics aside, let's talk structurally. What is the plan?
Sakaja says the county government should come up with alternative modern means of transport that will facilitate movement of passengers in and out of the city centre before implementing the ban.
Create that mass transit system. It will include bus rapid transport, and bus rapid transport is not just drawing lines on Thika Road. No, BRT is not just drawing lines. It is making sure you have high capacity buses that are on time, that are cross county. This radial around the city, there are nodes that had been earmarked where you have a train going around. Yeah, and then you have those which come inside, and then from there the Matatus pick people into the estates and takes them to those. It can be done in 3 years.
Matatu SACCOs have also filed a case in court challenging the ban, saying the directive will hurt commuters and the economy. However, the High Court declined to suspend the directive barring public service vehicles from accessing the city centre and directed the two parties to file and serve their petitions to the respondents. Governor Sonko, while appearing before a parliamentary committee today, insisted that there was no turning back on the directive, which he says is part of his administration's efforts to decongest the city.
So if we kubali hii matatu madness, mambo ya hawking, mambo ya boda in our CBDs, hatusaidiani. This is the right time, and I know people are suffering. I'm just requesting for patience from commuters. We are going to work on an amicable permanent solution to address this issue.
According to Transport Cabinet Secretary James Macharia, his ministry will hold an emergency stakeholders meeting tomorrow morning to look at various options regarding the directive of banning public service vehicles from the city centre.
Moving forward, people who cannot afford private means of transport after being dropped out of CBD are the ones who will continue to suffer as the case against this ban is canvassed in court. Vincent Oduor, NTV, Nairobi.
All right, and we have our reporter Kennedy Mureithi within the Nairobi CBD just assessing the situation. Kennedy, give us the picture of what the situation on the ground is.
And well, Zainab, a picture I'll paint for you. Nairobi is a parking lot. Actually, the CBD is a parking lot as everybody is trying to get home at this particular time. And it has been like this since 5 o'clock in the evening when most people leave their offices as they go home. Remember, after the ban on Matatus getting into the CBD was effected, most of the people today, as we realized since the day break, is that most people were able to bring out their cars from home and they now use them to come to town, and that is what has now caused a traffic snarl up within the CBD. Are the lights working? Yes, some of the lights are working, and I want to walk, as my camera person Eric Kisinta is going to walk with me, is that the lights are working, but the matatus or the cars around the road are not actually moving, and it has become a parking lot, and most people are also resorting to walking, and some of them whom we are looking at are even thinking of going to bars. Some of them who we've spoken to but don't want to speak on camera are saying that they'd rather go to the bar, wait for traffic to subside, then they'll be able to go home at that particular time. We've been able to see this road is the one that is leading all the way to GPO. At this particular time, there's not so much traffic, but what we can see on this other side is that there's so much traffic, and as much as the lights are working, nothing is happening at this particular time. Probably I'd want to speak to one and get a feel of how has it been. Habari?
Mzuri sana.
Unaitwa nani na how has it been for you? For how long have you been in traffic so far?
I've been in traffic for the last 2 hours. From Kenyatta, I have taken over 2 hours up to here. It has been hectic. It's better for matatu than these small cars.
Is it nani matatu ambazo zimesumbua sana kwa barabara? Si ni gari ndogo ama ni matatu?
Gari ndogo. Gari ndogo ndizo zimesumbua sana saizi. Okay. Yes.
Well, that is a sentiment from one of the motorists here in town, and they're saying that it has actually taken him 2 hours all the way from Kenyatta to this particular point where is the CBD, that is where just near Nation Center, and he has not even gone a quarter of his journey, he says. And all this is just happening on the first day when Governor Sonko and the ban on Matatus getting into town has just taken effect. Kenyans will have to wait until Thursday when Senator Sakaja has gone to court, and he'll be expecting to probably get a lift on this ban that has been effected by the county government. What does Governor Sonko and his government say? They are not relenting on what they are doing, and this is something that needs to be done. Leaders are saying that it is something that needs to be well thought out. But well, we can see some cars are moving, but they're not going so far. You will realize that on that place, as my camera person is showing, is that is the farthest that they can go. As from there is too much traffic as at that point. People from this operating taxis, that is Uber, Taxify, and all other these applications, they have had a field day today. Probably even if you tried to request one, it will show that probably it will come at about after 10 minutes or even 20 minutes. It has been a hectic day, but Nairobians will have to contend with this, not just today, but they will have to contend with it till Thursday if the ban will be lifted. People from Meru, Zainab, have also called me that tea room is a no-go zone. That is where I come from, but they have said I should talk to Governor Sonko to give them an alternative. Will I do that? I don't have the powers. We'll only have to wait until Thursday. Back to you, Zainab, in studio.
All right, thank you so much, Kennedy Mureithi. Is saying the tea room is not it's a no-go zone for those coming from the Meru side, but that is the situation on the ground at this point. Of course, we'll be bringing you more updates continuing tomorrow with that ban having taken effect today. Now, a woman accused of kidnapping an 8-month-old baby in Mombasa has defended herself before a Mombasa court, saying that she acted in the best interest of the child. Margaret submitted to the court that she rescued the infant from the mother, who threatened to kill the baby and commit suicide. Charity Mwangi with more.
Baby Consolata Wamboi had been announced missing on the 8th of November this year, only to be found last Friday when she was found and reunited with her family amidst mystery on how the 8-month-old baby went missing. The mystery will then be solved following revelations by the second accused that the baby was voluntarily handed over to her by the first accused, the mother. The second accused, Margaret Wairimo Kehiko, further submitted to the court that the mother to the child, Joyce Wairimo, was unsure of Wamboi's paternity, which informed her decision to end her life and that of her daughter. Joyce was not sure that her husband had fathered the child. Kehiko, Wairimo and a third accomplice, Susan Nyambura, are charged with child theft, conspiracy to defeat justice and interference with witnesses. The charge sheet indicates that the suspects jointly and fraudulently took the minor with intent to deprive Peter Cairo Kinothia, the legal father, of access to the child. In addition, the first accused is charged with neglect. Shanzu's senior principal magistrate, Diana Mochache, ordered the suspects be detained at the DCIO office in Kisauni, recommending psychiatric evaluation for the mother of the child, the first accused.
It is very rare that a mother would give out a child.
Si kawaida kwamba mama atapatiana mtoto wake.
Would therefore make an order that this mother be submitted for psychiatric evaluation.
The infant was discovered at Mchorwi in Molo in the custody of Miss Kehiko and Miss Nyambura following investigations that discovered that the three are allegedly part of a kidnapping network operating within the country.
The accused persons are linked to a child trafficking syndicate.
The case is expected to be mentioned on December 20th. Until then, the infant will be under the care of a children's home, more specifically the Mjiwo Salama Children's Home. Charity Mwangi, NTV.
And as that continues to unravel, Education Cabinet Secretary Amina Mohammed says the number of students joining Form 1 next year has increased by 1,625 students compared to last year. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Education will release 16 billion shillings to schools in support of free day secondary school education. NTV's education reporter Sharon Baranga with the details.
This year's Kenya Certificate of Primary Education Examination graduates will be the second group that the government is targeting in the 100% transition to secondary schools. According to Education Cabinet Secretary Amina Mohammed, once this is achieved, then the country will have improved access, retention, and completion of basic education for all learners.
Students selected to join national schools already know the institutions that will be part of their 4-year journey in their last leg before they complete basic education.
The ministry this year will place 1,032,334 candidates in secondary schools. This number excludes refugees, it excludes adult learners, it excludes absentee candidates, it excludes private candidates above the age of 18.
The criteria used in selection of Form 1 students to their respective schools was based on merit, equity, choice and affirmative action. This year, over 31,000 students will join national schools, compared to last year's 29,712.
We were lucky to receive funds for 8,700 this year. Although the number was lower than that required, the teachers recruited have already reported and are helping to ease the workload.
The Ministry of Education is set to release 16 billion shillings for improvement of infrastructure to schools in support of free day secondary school education. 19 selected national schools are pioneers of the Day Wing program. Under this program, all learners in public day schools will be receiving 22,244 shillings per year.
We shall continue to make sure that you get the necessary instructional materials. We shall continue to make sure that you get the necessary investments in our infrastructure.
The top students in the 2018 KCPE exams will join Kenya High School and Alliance High School, while the best student in the special needs category will be joining Alliance High School. Learners from Kakuma and Dadaab refugee camps have over 12,000 slots in secondary schools. Once the Form 1 students are admitted to schools, their details will be captured online through the National Education Management Information System. The students are expected to start reporting to their schools between 7th and 11th January. Sharon Baranga, NTV.
Now, the Kitale High Court has issued a temporary injunction restraining the arrest of West Pokot Governor Professor John Lonyanpo for obstructing traffic police from their duties along the Pokot-Kapenguria Highway last week. Judge Hilary Chemitei also ordered that Lonyanpo have police officers seconded to him and his residence reinstated pending the hearing of the case. Speaking at the Kitale High Court, legal counsel representing the West Pokot Governor Professor John Lonyanpo, Peter Wanyama, said that the court has issued an order restraining Cabinet Secretary for Interior Fred Matiang'i, Inspector General of Police Joseph Boynet and Director of Public Prosecution Nurdin Haji against detaining, arresting and charging the governor in court. Last week on Wednesday, West Pokot Governor Lonyanpo stormed a roadblock along the Kitale-Lodwar Highway to free a boda rider who had been arrested and allegedly beaten by police officers. He reprimanded the officers for arresting the boda operators and expressed concern over illegal roadblocks which officers were accused of using to harass and demand bribes from motorists.
Of the security detail of the governor, because the security that the governor enjoys is not at the discretion of the cabinet secretary. The security is the governor enjoys is a constitutional benefit.
We cannot be intimidated by any way or any sort by when we want to defend our people, like what he did. He was defending our people from the impunity of police, and now we are threatened because of issues of security.
All right, and we'll be taking a very short break here on NTV Tonight, but we'd like to know from you, has the Matatu CBD ban affected you in any way? Talk to us NTV Tonight at Zainab Ismail at NTV Kenya. Stay tuned, we still have a lot more lined up for you. Welcome back. You're watching NTV Tonight. Now, Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko now says he has been funding the ongoing beautification of Nairobi Central Business District, which is not funded by the county coffers but from his pocket. Sonko, who appeared before the Senate Public Accounts and Investments Committee, told the senators that his philanthropic nature drove him to sink millions of his money into giving the city a new face, arguing that Nairobi County was dear to his heart. NTV's Kennedy Murray attended the session and has prepared this report.
You may have noticed ongoing works at every turn within the Central Business District. Roundabouts getting a new touch. As pavements get a new lace with fresh grass being planted and big signs erected warning pedestrians against stepping on the freshly planted grass and flowers, courtesy of Governor Mike Mbuvi Sonko.
I have used my resources because Nairobi is in my heart.
The Senate's Public Accounts and Investments Committee, which played host to Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko, brought up the issue, saying there had been an outcry over the frequency of such beautification programs run by the county government of Nairobi. During former Governor Evans Kidero's time, it had become a norm, and such concerns, according to the committee, were valid.
I have lived in this Nairobi for a few years now, and every month I notice that the roundabouts are they are changed, the entire soil is removed, new grass is planted. Is that another corruption avenue?
1 square meter of grass, a square meter is just like this file. My predecessor used to buy it at 400 bob. I source grass from Kajiado, from Olkalau at 20 bob. This is just a pilot project.
And he says he is not done yet. On billboards that dotted the main Mombasa Road highway during the 3-day Blue Economy Forum hosted in Nairobi, Sonko also said the move was aimed at promoting his colleagues, whom he told the committee were worth introducing to the visiting dignitaries.
For the billboards we have put along the Mombasa Road, we have not spent even a coin from the taxpayers' money.
All this, he said, is because
I'm a philanthropist, Mr. Chair, and my work is known.
Sonko, however, said the county would look into setting aside money in the next financial year to duplicate the same beautification being carried out within the CBD in all the 17 sub-counties in Nairobi. Kennedy Murray, NTV.
Now, at least 20 students from the Technical University of Mombasa were arrested following protests at the university. Police were forced to fire live bullets to disperse the rowdy students who had barricaded roads connecting the Mombasa island with huge stones. The students are protesting a directive by the institution's administration that fees must be paid before writing exams.
Transport was for the better part of Monday morning disrupted along Abdel Nasser Road as Technical University of Mombasa students went on rampage. The students were protesting against what they termed as tough new rules introduced by the university administration. Among the issues they raised was the deadline of payment of school fees before one sits for their end of semester examination.
There are some students who are currently 4th years who are taking engineering course. These students are using the JQuat curriculum. But the people who are back, the 3rd years, are using TUM curriculum. So they were given something that is known as RSO, repeat, stay out. So this RSO, you are supposed to come, you're supposed to redo the units, but you're going to join the group that is behind you. So the problem comes, when you're doing different units, how are you going to join them? Why are you going to join them?
Technical University of Mombasa Student Association President Julius Mushiri, however, differed with the students who were rioting.
The bone of contention was the issue of fee. Regarding the payment, we are headed to exams. We are starting our exams on 7th. So the student were demanding for an extension of the fee payment deadline to 7th. And it has already been done. It has been extended to 6th of December.
It took the intervention of police officers from the General Service Unit and Administration Police to disperse the rowdy students and quell the riots. Jean Guiri, NTV.
Thank you so much, Jen Goyer. And that report takes us to yet another break. When we come back, quite a lot. All right, thank you so much for staying with us. Let's take a look at the day's business news. On the number of listed companies issuing profits warnings for the period ending December 31st this year has increased, with tires and allied products company Samia Africa joining the list. A statement from the company states that net earnings for the period ending December this year are bound to be at least 25% lower than in the same period in 2017. This implies that shareholders of Samia Africa are expecting the total comprehensive income for 2018 to fall below 2 billion shillings compared to 2.6 billion shillings as at the end of 2017. This comes on the back of similar announcements by cement manufacturer Bamburi and mortgage lender Housing Finance Corporation last week. Adverse market conditions have been cited as a key driver of the profit warnings. Now, the National Treasury has moved to allay fears surrounding Kenya's debt position, saying the government is undertaking prudent borrowing. Last week, ratings agency Moody's termed Kenya as one of the countries at high risk of losing strategic assets to the Chinese over rapid growth of debt from the Asian giant. The National Treasury, however, says the government is borrowing in adherence to the Public Finance Management Act, and fears over the risk of defaulting have been blown out of proportion. Treasury's Director for Policy Risk Management, Daniel Ndoho, says that the key debt sustainability indicators suggest that Kenya is in a favorable position.
The Constitution states that.
And with time running out to stave off worst-case scenarios of climate change and scientists putting a 12-year clock on it, the world, and mostly Africa, is desperate to reverse the impacts of the changing climate. More than 190 countries, including Kenya, have sent delegations to Katowice, Poland, for the Global United Nations Conference on Climate Change. What does Kenya hope to achieve at the meeting? Zainab Ismail now reports from Poland.
The African continent is said to be the most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, with prolonged periods of drought and floods sweeping through the continent, leaving displacement, hunger and death in their wake. It is against this backdrop that African governments are here in Katowice, Poland, for a seat at the negotiating table to climate-proof the continent, and Kenya has not been left behind.
We must adopt the rule book, which will now define how the Paris Agreement will be able to be operationalized. Two, we must have the Article 9 of the Paris Agreement, that we have sustainable, predictable acts and ease of access to climate finance. It is complex that many developing countries cannot access. We want ease of access. We want developing countries want to know how much. One of our ambitions is to get all the climate money to flow into Kenya. We have systems in place, we have policies in place, we have strategies in place, we have rules in place, and we are ready.
With only a few weeks to go before 2018 comes to an end, Kenya has had a not-so-good year, having suffered one of the worst droughts in the last 50 years that forced it to make a United Nations appeal. Also in the same year, the long rain season came with massive floods that swept across the country, leaving thousands displaced and hundreds dead. And also temperatures were recorded to be high in many parts of the country, especially in the north of the country. And this script was replicated across the world. The World Meteorological Organization is reporting that 2018 is on the track to being one of the hottest years in history. And for a continent as vulnerable as Africa, saving lives is crucial.
Issues of finance are very critical to provide solutions for climate change. So this is very important. How are we going to respond to the issues of mitigation, adaptation, which is very critical for Africa, and of course the technology which we need in the implementation of these solutions.
In October this year, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change produced a special report that shows that global temperatures are rising faster than was earlier thought, and that if economies don't do something to decarbonize soon, then the world will be barely livable in the next 12 years. Now, this Katowice meeting will continue for the next 14 days, and the Kenya delegation is a 26-member team that is headed by the Cabinet Secretary in the Ministry of Environment, Keriako Tobiko, and it also includes 7 members of Parliament. Zainab, NTV, in Katowice, Poland.
Now, long-distance truck drivers based in Mombasa are protesting at what they allege is unfair treatment given to them when compared to those from the neighboring Uganda. They say that work and pay conditions favor Ugandan drivers who come all the way to the port of Mombasa to pick trailers destined for their country. The drivers are calling on the government to introduce new measures to ensure that they can get better pay packages, since the standard gauge railway has already contributed to the erosion of their revenue.
Angalia dereva Mkenya kutoka hapa Mombasa anaenda Kampala. Analipwa shilingi 3,500 hadi shilingi 6,000. Na counterpart wake wa Uganda analipwa shilingi 20,000. Hiyo ni haki kweli? Lakini mostly tunalia kwa sababu ya Waganda. Wamekuja wamechukua zile kazi ambazo Wakenya wanafanya. So tunauliza serikali yetu jinsi kwa nini wameachilia Waganda? Tufanye kama vile Tanzania. Tunapeleka gari paka Horohoro, Taveta, tunawaachia pale, wenzetu wanachukua kutoka pale wanapeleka nchini kwao. So tunaomba vile Uganda ikue vile. Tupeleke gari zetu paka boda, wao wachukue pale boda.
So tungependa kuwa serikali iamue kwamba hata sisi tufikishe magari boda, huko kwao waendeshe wenyewe, hatutakuwa na takshishi. Ule muungano wa Afrika rais alifungua, Waganda walete mahindi, si tupeleke nazi, tuuziane kwa amani. Lakini hakufungua kwamba vibarua zetu ziji zifanywe na Waganda. Hiyo tunakataa. Kama Mkenya tuna haki zetu.
All right, we're going to take yet another short break here on NTV Tonight. When we come back, we have quite a lot in store for you, plus some sporting action. Stay tuned. Owner knows the importance of keeping their vehicle looking clean. While others do the cleaning themselves, many prefer to pay a small fee for the convenience of having their vehicles cleaned professionally. NTV's Ismail talks to one such car wash attendant and examines this career. Here's Peter Gariti's story on this week's My Job.
When 21-year-old Peter Gateri finished secondary school 3 years ago, his plan was to further his studies and get into university. However, lack of money saw him abandon those lofty dreams. Undeterred, he decided to put his hands to work, quite literally.
Hii kazi niliintroduciwa na beshte yangu. Beshte yangu, yani hiyo time by then nilikuwa jobless. Beshte yangu fulani hapo hivyo akanitia job kawash ingine. Nikaanza tu, ilikuwa by then nikianza ilikuwa hard sana. Nikianza at first.
Even so, Peter was not discouraged. He quickly learned on the job to become a detailed car wash attendant. And now, 1 year, 5 months down the line, he is one of the most preferred attendants at Runda Car Care Auto Clinic.
Chenye mimi napenda about this job, ni eti hii job by the tuseme ni kazi honest hata. Juani ni kazi ya mikono yako, ni service. Yani unapatana hadi na customer wengine wana kutip vizuri sana.
It is through this job that Peter sustains himself and his family members. Depending on the car wash management, some pay 100 Kenya shillings for each car washed, while others prefer to pay a monthly salary to each attendant.
Yani ukienda hadi home, yani nimejaribu kuji-upgrade kidogo. Yani hata nikitokea hivyo, yani mtu hawezi sema mimi ni mtu wa car wash. Unaona? At least yani najieka vizuri. Bado watu wetu bado nawasaidia, yani unaweza pata like home ni mimi tu na walipia stima, yani bado niko na my cousins.
Still, it has not been a smooth road for Peter in his work, with some of the challenges he faces on a daily basis.
Yani pia maji ni hatari sana, hiyo pressure. Pia hata ukiosha engine inakukata sana. Yani hata ukiangalia mtu akosangi vilema kwa mikono.
Na wewe hauna?
Yani hata ukiangalia huku hivi mingi niko nazo hata zimepona. Yani pia yani hii pressure yani unafaa unaihandle vizuri. Juu hata pia ukiosha engine ukijaribu kuichapa sabuni kidogo huko ndani kuna waya fulani huko na chuma zinakukatakata. Unaona? Yani pia bado unapatana na makastoma wengine yani hata haoni yani kama wewe ni mtu. Yani wanadharau watu wa car wash.
And for those who despise this kind of work, Peter has this to say.
Usichague kazi. Wewe ni mwanaume, yani penda kazi yenye uko nayo saa hii. Juu ni ngumu sana mtu atoke na huko akuja kulisha kila siku. Wewe ndio utajilisha.
A young worker who has become an inspiration to many like him, who he encourages to fully grasp the fact that kazi ni kazi.
Hata kama utaenda hivyo hata uchome mei, utaenda hivyo hata maybe uzie watu nguo, na Mungu akiona effort yako, aone yani unajaribu kabisa, utakosa. Mimi hii kazi yani venye nimekuwa tu hapo hivi, najua yani nikiomba Mungu tu kila siku atanisaidia yani nipate kitu.
Peter Gateri is a great symbol showing that whatever you put your hands to do, as long as it's honest work and you put sacrifice and commitment, you can do it well. He still has a lot of hope and dreams for what tomorrow can hold. Mel Miendo, NTV.
Perfectly said there, kazi ni kazi. You cannot choose the kind of job that you have if it indeed feeds you. Well, we're going to take yet another break. When we come back, we still have quite a lot.
Brian Otwal. President Uhuru Kenyatta congratulated Harambee Stars for qualifying for the Africa Cup of Nations and promised to support them in their preparations for the 2019 AFCON, slated for June to July next year. Kenya booked a ticket to the Continental Showpiece after the CAF confirmed that Sierra Leone was disqualified from the qualifiers last Friday following an extraordinary executive committee meeting in Accra, Ghana. The CAF Executive Committee's decision left Group F with 3 teams, with Kenya sitting pretty top on 7 points, 1 ahead of second-placed Ghana. While 19 African football associations have failed to access funds from the FIFA Forward Development Program, Kenya has benefited from the world governing body's flagship project. FIFA held the first Continental Journalists Forum in South Africa to answer funding questions, including FKF's controversial 130 million shillings investment in an outside broadcasting van. NTV's Ida Waringa was in Johannesburg and filed this report.
Kenya is ranked highly on FIFA Forward's approved list after meeting set criteria for funding. FIFA Director of Member Associations and Development for Africa and Caribbean, Veron Mosengo Omba, told NTV Sport that top football giants such as Nigeria, Cameroon and Ghana had failed to meet the basic requirements from the world governing body to access the funds. Launched in May 2016 by FIFA President Gianni Infantino, it provides a member association with $1.25 million, or the equivalent of 125 million shillings yearly, broken down to $500,000 for operational costs and $750,000 for tailored projects. There was uproar in the country when FKF decided to spend their year's FIFA Forward funds, approximately 130 million Kenyan shillings, to buy an outside broadcasting van to produce local football games.
Kenya is full of criticism in the beginning. Whenever you start something that looks like that, because we're not entrepreneurs naturally. So when you take a risk, people criticize the risk. We took a risk.
However, FIFA and CAF lauded FKF's purchase. As per CAF rules, any member association's federation with clubs participating in either CAF Champions or Confederations competitions needs to provide an approved means to produce the games, failure to which they face a fine of anywhere between $27,000 to $40,000 to have CAF produce the game on its behalf. As a result, FKF's investment in the controversial OB van is viewed as a savings mechanism.
We've already made some money out of our project. I think about $60,000 already made out of it.
Kenya listed as 4th in the FIFA-approved funds list, and with the amount of money released to member nations set to increase from $1.25 million to $2 million in the next FIFA Forward cycle, it's the hope of many that the effect will be felt on the ground. Ida Waringa, NTV, Johannesburg.
And Football Kenya Federation will initiate under 13 and 15 girls leagues through partnerships with primary schools to offer a conducive environment for young female footballers to hone their talent. This was announced in Mombasa, where FKF kicked off the initial implementation plan of the FIFA pilot project for grassroots women's football. The world governing body extends $50,000 in funds to member associations for the development of the women's game on condition that the league has at least 10 clubs this season and runs for a minimum of 6 months with at least 90 games. The project comes after Kenya was selected to pilot the new program in which FIFA is aiming to reach 60 million female players by 2026.
Haya mafunzo myapeleke mashinani na muwe mabalozi wetu huko mashinani, kwamba mafunzo haya mtakaoyapata na yale yatakayotokea mpaka hii wiki nzima mtakaokuwa hapa itakuwa ni funzo kwenu nyinyi, na itakuwa ni kwamba sio mara ya kwanza. Kama mlivyoelezwa, hii FKF tumeanza zile project zote za FIFA.
There is also a program that aims to bridge the gap between our elite women leagues and the grassroots.
And Kenya Prisons and GSU are the champions of this year's National Volleyball League playoff finals that concluded at the Kasarani Indoor Arena. Prisons saw off defending champions Kenya Pipeline to reclaim the title they last won in 2013 by 3-1, and in the process denying the Oilers a 5th consecutive title. In the men's final, GSU marched on to a 13th league title after thrashing Kenya Prisons 3-0. As a result, Prisons and KCB, who finished second after beating Bungoma in straight sets, will represent Kenya at the 2019 African Club Championships, while GSU and Prisons, who came in second, will represent the country on the men's side. All right, that's the sport, but the Ballon d'Or Awards will also be given. The awards will be awarded tonight, and we'll be giving you the results of those who've won different awards later tomorrow in our subsequent bulletins. But for now, hand you back to Zainab.
Hi, thank you so much, Brian Otwell, for the stories.